Ezekiel Marsh stood at the altar next to the heaviest woman he'd ever seen, knowing he'd just traded his dignity for a single cow. But it wasn't the weight that bothered him. It was her expression. Not nervous, not hopeful, just calm. Like a poker player holding a royal flush. Her eyes met his, and for a brief second her lips curled not in a smile, but something close to amusement. Ezekiel swallowed hard. The preacher mumbled something about holy matrimony and everlasting union, but Ezekiel barely heard a word. All he could think about was the deal. One marriage for one cow, the last living cow in Cornelius Slade's prize herd. A cow that might just survive the drought, give milk, and restart his ranch. It was the only lifeline he had left. 3 months. Without rain had turned Ezekiel's pastures into cracked clay. His cattle dropped dead one by one, their ribs sharp as sickles, tongues black with thirst. The well dried up in late July. The bank sent its final warning in August. That cow meant survival. Slade, of course, had offered the deal with a snake's grin. "You marry my daughter, Adelaide," he'd said, gold tooth glinting in the saloon lantern light, "and I'll hand you the finest breeding cow in the territory. You need milk and meat more than you need pride." Adelaide hadn't spoken when Slade introduced them, just nodded once and returned to her tea. Ezekiel had agreed that night, over a shot of rye and a bitter taste in his gut. And now here he stood, sweat rolling down his back, the preacher finishing the last verse. Adelaide said "I do" with no inflection. Ezekiel echoed it like a man repeating orders from a hangman. They kissed, or rather, their faces met like two strangers bumping in a hallway, and just like that he was a married man. Slade clapped loud and hard. "Welcome to the family, son." That night, Ezekiel sat on the edge of the bed in his one-room cabin, watching the woman, his wife, move with unhurried grace around the small space. She lit the oil lamp, closed the shutters, then calmly, deliberately, locked the door from the inside with a heavy iron bolt. He blinked. "Didn't think we needed locking in." She turned, and for the first time her smile came freely. It was small, sharp. "Oh, Ezekiel," she said in a voice that didn't belong to the shy, heavy girl he'd met. "There's a lot you didn't think." She crossed the room and extended a hand, not for a handshake, but for something else. "My name's not Adelaide." He stared. "What?" She stepped closer, the lamplight catching a glint of steel in her corset. "Not a knife a badge. I'm Catherine Walsh," she said, "and I just made you a very necessary accomplice." By dawn, Catherine had packed her satchel with tools, lock picks, matches, a tiny Derringer pistol, and what she claimed was a vial of curare, freshly bought from a traveling salesman who specialized in frontier solutions. Except it wasn't as she bent over the satchel one last time. I pulled the vial from my coat pocket, the real one. Hers had never left my sight last night, and I'd switched it the moment she dozed off in the rocker. I didn't know what the real poison would have done. I didn't want to. We rode out without speaking, just the wind and hooves, and a shared silence heavy as thunderclouds. Slade's ranch sat like a fortress on the northern ridge, its fences wide and tall, gates manned even at dawn. He was throwing a feast that night, a public spectacle, to celebrate his daughter's wedding. He didn't know she was already dead. We tethered the horses behind a ridge of mesquite trees and crawled the last 100 yards on our bellies like foxes. Catherine's breath was even, calm. Mine wasn't. When the sky turned golden, she slipped her gloved fingers around the vial and whispered, "I'll pour it into his brandy. He won't feel a thing." I grabbed her wrist. Her eyes flicked too. "Mine, what are you doing? You're not going to kill him, Catherine. Don't be foolish." "I'm not," I said. "But that ain't poison in your hand. I swapped it." Her face didn't move at first, just blinked once. Then again. "You? What? You think you're the only one with a plan?" I said. "I watched you prepare this whole thing, studied every move. But you're blind, Catherine. You're so set on vengeance you can't see past the blood. She yanked her arm away. You don't know what that man's done. I know he killed your sister. I know he ruined your family. I also know the moment you kill him, you lose. You become what he is, and every word you say after that won't mean a damn thing. For a moment I thought she might shoot me. Instead, she laughed short and bitter. So what then? We just expose him? Like it's that easy? No, I said, kneeling and pulling a map from my coat. We change the plan, get that ledger, show it to the right people. And if we're lucky, we make him choke on his own lies instead of your poison. She stared at me, really stared. For the first time since this began, I think she saw me not just the desperate rancher who married her for a cow, but someone who had skin in this too. You said you needed a partner, I added. I'm here, but not as your pawn. She exhaled slow and hard. All right, Ezekiel, we do it your way. Then she tossed the vial into the dirt and crushed it under her boot. I didn't move. Couldn't. Just sat there, staring at the woman who 10 minutes ago had been my last shot at saving the ranch. Now she was someone else entirely, badge and all. Catherine ... Walsh? I repeated, my voice scraping low like boots on gravel. She nodded, pulling a folded paper from inside her corset. This is a death certificate for a girl named Adelaide Quinn. She died 6 weeks ago, shot in the back. The man who signed the burial report. She tossed the paper onto the knitstand. Cornelius Slade. My mouth felt like sand. You're saying Slade killed his own daughter? Her eyes locked onto mine. She wasn't his daughter. That was just the name she used. Adelaide Quinn was my sister. I stood slowly, the air thick with heat and lies. So what the hell is this then? Some kind of revenge wedding? Exactly, she said. I needed access. Legal, public, undeniable access. A marriage does that. And Slade? He just handed me over like cattle. Didn't even ask questions. That's how sure he was he'd won. I shook my head, trying to keep up. Why fake your identity? Why drag me into this? Because you were desperate. And desperate men don't ask questions either. She stepped closer. You had nothing to lose. I needed a cover. You needed a cow. It worked. But this ain't how things are done. No, she agreed, but justice hasn't been done either. My father was the last rancher holding water on our side of the valley. Slade poisoned his well, drove his cattle mad, and when Papa wouldn't sell, he vanished. They ruled it an accident, but my sister found the truth. That's why she was shot. Her voice trembled just once, then hardened again. He has a ledger, proof of every bribe, every murder he paid for. It's in his house, behind the study panel. And you thought you could just what? Poison him and ride off clean? I scoffed. She looked surprised. How did you? I saw the vial in your pack. Smelled the bitter almond on your gloves. You weren't exactly subtle. Her jaw clenched. I'm trained, Ezekiel. You'd be surprised what I can do. Oh, I already am, I muttered. Married a corpse's sister and found out I'm helping commit a murder. She stepped in, lowering her voice. Listen to me. Slade is evil. You think that cow came free? He was going to use you, like he used every other fool who thought they owed him. I rubbed my eyes. My head spun. Drought, debt, now deceit. So, what now? I asked finally. She walked to the table, pulled out a rolled blueprint. Now we get that ledger, and we ruin him. I stared at her. This wasn't about a cow anymore. Wasn't even about the ranch. It was about revenge. About justice. And whether I liked it or not, I was already in too deep. We didn't make it to Slade's study that night. We were barely 10 minutes into rehearsing our break-in route when the sound of hooves thundered through the still evening air. Catherine snuffed the lantern instantly and pressed her back against the wall of my cabin. I peeked out through the crooked shutters. Dust trailed behind 4 riders galloping straight for us. At the head rode Marshal Brandt, a man I'd trusted once, rode with, drank with, swore an oath with Dot behind him, Slade's. M.E. and I cursed under my breath. They weren't supposed to know. Catherine's voice was low and tight. They do. You think the preacher sold us out? I didn't have to think. He was sweating like a hog during the ceremony. Too quiet, could have ridden straight to Slade once we left. Outside, the horses slowed. Boots hit dirt. Catherine grabbed the ledger map and stuffed it into her corset. We're not ready for this. You still got the Derringer? One shot, she said. Not enough. I motioned toward the root cellar under the floorboards. Get down there. Take the map, the documents, all of it. If they find me alone, maybe I can stall them. Her eyes narrowed. You're gonna lie for me now? I'm not lying. I'm just not telling the whole story, she hesitated. You won't hold out long. Long enough, go. She slipped through the hidden trapdoor, just as someone pounded the door with the butt of a rifle. I crossed the room, heart hammering, and opened it like I'd been half asleep. Marshal Brandt stood there in a tan duster, badge catching the firelight. Slade lounged behind him on horseback, cigar glowing, smile wide and venomous. Evenin'. Zeke, Brandt said Dot. I yawned like I hadn't just swallowed panic. Marshal, what's the trouble? Slade spoke up. My daughter's missing, newly married and already running off. Breaks a father's heart. She left here hours ago, I said. Didn't even say where she was going. You know how women are, Slade chuckled. That so? Brandt's eyes darted around the cabin. Mind if we come in? I mind, I said. You got a warrant? Nope, Brandt said, smiling like it was a joke. Just concerned citizens looking for a runaway bride. Slade dismounted, walking slow like a cat in no hurry to catch its prey. See, Ezekiel, I don't think you ever married my daughter. I think you married someone pretending to be her. I tensed. She fooled me, sure, he said, circling. But you knew. You're in on it, and you're hiding her. Get off my land, I growled. Brandt pulled his pistol, aimed it low at my thigh. You gonna make this difficult, Zeke? Behind me, under my feet, I felt the faintest creak. Catherine shifting below the floorboards. Only if you make it dirty, I said. Slade grinned. Oh, it's already dirty. Always has been. The moonlight bathed the yard in a pale glow as I stepped out onto the porch, hands raised, slow and easy. Slade's men flanked the cabin now, 4 rifles pointed my way, one twitch away from turning me into raw meat. Marshal Brandt still had his pistol aimed at my leg. Not to kill, just to maim. That's how he worked. Dirty, but never enough for a hanging. I ain't harboring nobody, I said, my voice calm, steady. But even if I was, I wouldn't hand her over to the likes of you. Slade stepped forward, flicked his cigar into the dirt. You're brave, Ezekiel, I'll give you that. Stupid as a sun-baked jackass, but brave. You killed her sister, I said. You poisoned her father's land, drove her family into the ground. Slade chuckled. You sound just like her. Always whining about justice and truth, like either of those things matter out here. I nodded toward Brandt. How much he cost you? Brandt shrugged. More than you got. Less than I deserve? The sound of that, it broke something in me. I'd seen men get bent by the weight of this land. But Slade? He wasn't bent, he was carved from it. Drought and blood made into flesh. And Brandt? Just another puppet wearing a badge. Behind me I heard a faint clink. Catherine, probably readying her little pistol. One shot. She'd need better odds. I stared at Slade, then at the torch in his hand. Still burning, throwing shadows across. The yard, I made a choice. Without thinking, I drew my revolver and shot the torch clean out of his hand. Flames exploded upward as the oil-soaked stick dropped, fire catching dry grass and kicking off a small blaze. The night was instantly chaos shouting, gun metal gleaming in every direction. Slade's men opened fire, but they couldn't see where to aim. The porch went dark. I dove into the dirt as bullets whizzed past my ear, crawling fast toward the side of the cabin. I fired once, low, at the boots of the closest man. He yelped and dropped. Brant fired blindly into the cabin, thinking Catherine was still there. He didn't know she'd moved. Through the smoke and confusion, I heard her voice sharp, commanding from somewhere near the barn. "Drop your weapons. You're surrounded." At first, I thought it was a bluff. Then I heard the thundering. Hooves. More riders fast, sweeping in from the west. Men with clean badges, loud voices shouting orders. Slade backed up toward his horse, eyes wide. "What the hell is this?" I grinned, breathless. "Insurance." He looked around at the shadows moving through the smoke. Too many to count. Real lawmen. The kind Slade hadn't bribed. You really thought you could throw a party and not draw attention? I asked. He turned to run. Catherine stepped out from behind the barn, lantern in hand, coat flaring like wings, gun steady. "Don't," she said. Slade froze. For the first time all night, he looked afraid. The lantern in Catherine's hand glowed like a beacon through the smoke and gunpowder haze. Her arm steady, eyes locked on Slade as he froze mid-step. Behind her, the riders fanned out real marshals this time. Not bought men. Not corrupt cowards like Brant. These men wore their badges with dust and pride, long coats flapping as they dismounted with purpose. The first to step forward was a man I recognized by reputation, a lone territorial Marshal R.J. Hanley. Broad shoulders, snow-white mustache, eyes that had seen too much and regretted even more. He raised a hand, and his deputies took positions with practiced ease. Brant's pistol sagged. "R.J., what the hell are you doing here?" Hanley didn't answer him, just nodded to Catherine. "Miss Walsh, we received your signal loud and clear." Catherine lowered the lantern, breath shaking with relief. "It worked." "You bet your life it did," Hanley said, then turned to Brant. "You're under arrest, Marshal. Step away from your weapon." Brant didn't argue. He knew it was over. His revolver hit the dirt with a dull thud. Slade, though he didn't go quiet. He laughed, loud and mean. "This is a farce. You think these people will believe some grieving woman and a broke rancher over me? I run this county." Hanley approached, slow and calm. "Not anymore." Catherine stepped beside him and pulled the documents from her coat. Blueprints, letters, a small black book full of bribes, payments, names. "This ledger proves everything. Land theft, water tampering, bribery, murder. My sister was Adelaide Quinn. She was never Slade's daughter. She was his problem, and he solved it the only way he knew how." A murmur spread through the growing crowd. Slade's ranch hands stood off to the side now, unsure whether to run or pretend they'd known nothing. Ezekiel stepped forward beside her, dirt on his face, smoke in his hair, blood trickling from a grazed shoulder. "She's telling the truth." Hanley looked over the evidence, his jaw tightening. "Damn solid case," he muttered. Then to his men, "Take him." Within minutes, Slade was disarmed, shackled and seething. Brant, stone-faced and hollow, followed behind with wrists bound tight. The yard was quiet now, just the pop and hiss of dying fire and the metallic jingle of chains. Catherine turned to Ezekiel, her eyes glossy in the lantern light. "You didn't have to stay, I know," he said, "but I wanted to." For the first time since they'd met, neither of them had anything to hide. She nodded once, then stepped closer. "There's one thing I never told you." "What's that?" "I wasn't just trying to finish my sister's fight. I was trying to forgive myself for not stopping it sooner." He reached for her hand, fingers rough from years of ranch work. "You did." She looked down at their hands, then back up. "And you?" "What now?" He exhaled, long and tired. "I still got a dead ranch. Still got no cattle. But I think I might have something better." Catherine gave him a tired smile. "So do I." By morning, Slade and Brant were loaded into separate wagons, under heavy guard, bound for federal trial in Dodge City. Hanley made sure every document, every signed confession, every name Catherine had unearthed was packed safe in his saddlebag. Justice for once wasn't just promised, it was on the move. The yard was empty now, the party tables overturned, half-burnt decorations curling in the dust. Catherine stood beside me, silent, eyes on the rising sun. She looked tired, worn, clean through. But she didn't look bitter anymore. "You never asked why I chose you," she said quietly. I shifted my weight, shoulders still sore from the night's chaos. Figured I was convenient. She turned to me, a little smile ghosting her lips. "You were more than that, Adelaide. She used to write me letters. Every week. I didn't answer half of them, always too busy chasing a lie or another dead lead. But she wrote about a rancher downriver. Said he was kind, honest. That he offered her a ride once when her horse threw a shoe and didn't ask for anything. In return, I blinked. I remember that. She didn't say much. Just smiled and said thanks. That was you, Catherine said. You treated her like a person, not some orphan girl with no land and no name. She never forgot it, neither did I. I didn't know what to say. The truth hit me like a kick to the chest. The woman I thought I married, the one I barely knew, had already known me better than I knew myself. I thought this marriage was just a scam, I admitted, just survival. It was, she said. At first, we walked the fence line in silence, boots crunching dry earth. The sun lit the hills in gold and shadow, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't dread the day ahead. You said Adelaide wasn't Slade's daughter, I finally said. But I heard the whole town call her that. She let him, Catherine replied. He took her in after our father died, said he'd protect her. She thought he was doing it out of kindness. She was wrong. He used her, made her change. Her name, play his perfect daughter, hide the things he was doing. When she found out the truth, she tried to leave. That's when he shot her in the back. Her voice cracked then. Not much, but enough. She was my little sister, she whispered. She always wanted to run a ranch of her own one day. She used to sketch barns and cows in the margins of her letters. Said she wanted a place where nothing hurt. I looked around at my broken fence, my dead grass, the ghost of what my father built. Maybe we can make that place, I said. Together. She didn't answer right away. Just reached out and took my hand, and didn't let go. A week passed, then two. The rains didn't come, but something else did hope. Marshal Hanley sent word that Slade and Brandt were both found guilty within days. The ledger Catherine recovered was ironclad. Slade's land and assets were seized, and the federal court awarded a portion to the victims he'd stolen from. Somehow that included me. I got the cow, the one that started all this. Her name was Maybelline, fat, stubborn, and as ornery as a mule, but she gave milk, real milk, and that meant life. The ranch was still busted fences falling, soil brittle, but it wasn't dead anymore. And I wasn't alone. Catherine stayed. Not just because she had nowhere else to go, but because we both knew something had grown between us that neither one of us planned for. It wasn't love yet. But it wasn't lies anymore either. Every day she rose before the sun and fed Maybelline with a mix of hay and patience. Every night we sat on the porch with mugs of chicory coffee and stories about people we used to be. One night, I asked her, "When do you stop looking for revenge?" She stared at the stars for a long time. "When it stops looking back." I didn't press further. We fixed the fences first, then the chicken coop. I traded an old saddle for a pair of laying hens. Catherine bartered one of Slade's ledgers for seeds, beans, squash, onions. She planted them with a focus that bordered on spiritual. Said her sister used to hum while she planted. Catherine hummed now, too. One afternoon I came in from hauling timber and found her on the porch, sketching. Not maps or plans or blueprints, but a barn, a proper one. Clean red, with a big loft and a row of white-trimmed windows. She looked up, caught me watching, and blushed like a girl half her age. "It's hers," she said. "Adelaide's dream. I just added a window for my corner. Think we can build it?" I asked. "With time," she said. "And maybe another cow." We laughed. Honest laughter. The kind I hadn't felt in years. Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, we stood on the edge of the property. Dust curled around our boots. The sky glowed like fire. Catherine slipped her hand into mine. "I lied to you that night," she said. "Which part?" I teased. "When I said I didn't believe in second chances." I looked at her, really looked. The same woman who locked our bedroom door and told me her name wasn't Adelaide. The same woman who threw away poison and picked up justice. "I did too," I said. She smiled. "Then maybe this is both of ours." We stood there a while longer. Two people who had nothing left but a cow, a patch of dry earth, and a second chance dot, and for the first time in a long damn while, that was enough.